Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here with lifeonfire.com. Got my main man, Dr. Andreas in the house.
What's up, my friend?
How you doing, man?
Doing great, thank you.
Good. So thanks for coming out here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Dr. Andreas has been working with, or has worked with folks like T. Harv Eker, Brian Tracy. He's been the behind-the-scenes guy who is just busted out and just been rocking and rolling with your own company. And what I'm excited about today is he's going to be drilling down into how you can amplify your talk. So the most fun I've ever personally had in business has been doing live events. Not only has it been the most fun, but it's been the most profitable. And so here's a speaker trainer who's going to help you amplify your talk. We have so much for you to share today. And if you want to attract more, ideal clients to your business, if you want to build community and you want to authentically earn more revenue in your business, you've got to stay put and you've got to buckle your seatbelt for Dr. Andreas. Stay tuned. Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here, and I'm a kick-ass business coach, and I'm on an absolute mission to help you find your purpose in life, to help you love what you do for work every single day, to help you be the rock star that you are meant to be, to make more money than you ever thought was possible, and to have more time freedom so you can actually enjoy the life that you're living. I'm here to help you set your life on fire. All right, so we are back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So before we dive into just amplifying your talk, I'd love to just get just a quick tidbit on your background. So, it's super impressive the things that you've done. We've got a little bit of history together, but why don't you share just what you did behind the scenes with, Brian Tracy, T. Harv Eker, and where some of this experience lie?
Yeah, this experience actually began early in my career as a chiropractor because I was very frustrated in positioning myself in the marketplace because there's a lot of stigmas associated with it. There's a lot of objections that are associated with it. And I wanted to find a way to shatter through those ceilings of myths and misconceptions that held my patients back from the results that they wanted. So I threw together a workshop, and in that workshop overcame my own fear of being in front of the room because I wasn't trained to be a public speaker by any means.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, was able to break through in my community and position myself with authority, deliver great value, and come from a place of service. At the end of the day, I'm a doctor, and doctor means to teach.
Yeah.
And so as entrepreneurs and business owners, it's our responsibility to educate our prospects, our community, in what they do and what you do and how you can help them, and then bridge the gap with offers that serve them. And that's our duty. It's our obligation.
Yep.
And it's coming from that place of letting them know that you're on their side, that you're there to help them and demonstrate you can help them by actually helping them.
So there's a couple things in there. So, when you go back to your days as a chiropractor, so you mentioned something about there being just lots of competition. There's lots of chiropractors.
Absolutely.
And what I think is really cool about your journey and story is that instead of doing what everyone else was doing to get clients, that you actually decided to use speaking from a stage, or it could be webinar or workshops. But why did you decide to use speaking as a method of attracting clients, and why is it, for in your view, better than other methods?
Well, honestly, I think the simple answer, it's actually the most cost-effective marketing tool that you can use, period. I found it very difficult to try to convey what I did as a doctor in an ad. And, and this was before social media. I'm dating myself now, before that even existed. So it was traditional print media, advertising, even yellow pages, when you can think of that. And I thought, there's no one better to communicate what I do than myself.
Yeah.
And my voice. And I also discovered that when I went to BNI events or chamber events, that it was always the speaker that walked out with all of the leads, walked out with the authority and the positioning. And I said, I want to be that guy. I wanted to be that girl. And so it was time for me to step out of my own comfort zone because no one was going to do it for me.
Yeah.
And so as a result, I fell in love with it because it attracted the ideal patients that I wanted to work with. I was no longer sitting at weekend expos, with a booth and having people walk by like, don't talk to me, don't bother me. And now people are now being attracted because they saw me as the authority. They got a chance to know, like, and trust me. It elevated my positioning in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, it accelerated the sales cycle. It actually made the back-end process so much easier because they came in already knowing what I do, how I can serve them, and how I can help them.
Yeah, and I think what's so good about all this is it's like the attraction, which is like pull, as opposed to pushing. You're not pushing anything on people. You're really more attracting them to you. And you mentioned something about the authority piece and the positioning, and that's what I love about speaking, is that the speaking, it elevates the brand and the posture and the positioning where people are coming to you and they're jockeying for your time. And so whether you're a chiropractor, whether you're a coach, a service professional, it's like whatever you do as an entrepreneur, there's always a tie-in. Like I was thinking about this before we got rolling, is like it actually applies to almost any profession that you could put on a workshop. Even if it's a meetup group, you could put on, workshops, 1-day events, 3-day events. And it's such a good model of bringing in clients,
It really is. And the beautiful part about it is that you never know who's in the audience. And that's the most powerful thing, because so many people have asked me, how have I reinvented my career by working behind the scenes with T. Harv Eker and Brian Tracy and professional organizations around the world, and it was because of speaking. I did a talk once at a warehouse in La Jolla. You wouldn't even imagine. The guys were all tatted up, dropping F-bombs like a greeting, and here I come in as this white coat doctor doing a presentation, but I decided to crush it. And I did, and as a result of that, they said, oh my God, you're like a little mini Tony Robbins. You got to meet my friend. Who's your friend? Well, my friend does training for professional sports teams. Next thing you know, I'm on the phone with him. Next thing you know, I'm on a plane to the Pittsburgh Pirates doing a sales training to their organization. And then from there, blossomed on to where I am today. And then using that skill to not only serve them in my own business, but to use it in teaching and training, because we use this skill everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you consider yourself a speaker or not, we all use speaking. Whether it's at that 30-second infomercial when you're one-on-one with a prospect, or maybe you're presenting what you do at a BNI event, or at a chamber event, or you're doing podcasts, or you're doing videos, you're doing interviews.
Yeah.
It's all in how you use your voice, and you find that positioning of who you are, and then being able to show that value by actually helping them and bridging the gap.
And, it's like I've got a mentor and coach that always says, when we're setting goals, you can set the goals like, I want to get 3 more clients, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, but how many times did the goals not get hit? And, his big belief is that instead of just setting goals like, I want to make an extra $5,000, or I want to get 2 more clients, his whole thing is about setting goals that are going to push you to grow, which would be joining a Toastmasters, going to your event, Amplify Your Talk, and learning how to communicate, because if you can really refine your communication skills, that's going to lead to greater confidence. That's going to lead to more sales. So sometimes we're all so focused on the tactic. If I can only learn this one specific technique to get more clients, versus if we can all learn how to communicate more effectively and influence more authentically and attract clients, that is a game changer. And really, it's like with what you're doing, it is communication to the core. You're helping someone take their message, get really comfortable with it, and identify it. And, another thing I want to bring up real quick is you were talking about the influence that happens as the speaker. And you mentioned, the BNI groups and chamber groups. I'll never forget when I used to be back in my network marketing days, and my upline, my mentor guy, Tommy Wyatt, we were at this big presentation. There was hundreds of people there, and he pulled me aside, and I'll never forget it. He grabbed me. It was like a father-son moment, and he grabbed me, and he's just like, takes me by the shoulders, and then he just spun me around, and he had his hands on my shoulders, and he's like, I want you to look at that. And I'm looking at the stage, and he was just like, I want you to notice who in the room makes all the money, who in the room has the influence, who in the room has the ability to give back and use that money to impact more lives. And I was like, the person on the stage. And he's like, exactly. Right. Don't be the person in the seat, be the person on the stage. Right. And I'll never forget that. I'm actually getting crazy goosebumps thinking about it, because
so true, though.
Because that moment, I could never imagine myself on the stage. I could not imagine being that person. I had a fear, I had a phobia of speaking on stage, and I had something that happened to me as a high schooler that created this massive fear around public speaking. And I bring that up because I would love for you to share, what would you say to someone that says, all right, I want to learn how to communicate better, I want more confidence, I want to attract better clients and have a better lifestyle, but Dr. Andreas, I hate speaking, or I don't want to do public speaking.
I don't consider myself a speaker. I'm not in that. Listen, I totally get it, because I'm so glad they asked that question, because it's funny, what wasn't included in that story when I did my first health talk is that when the patients were actually showing up or the community was showing up, I wanted to run out the back door as fast as they were coming in because I wasn't trained to be a public speaker. And there's not a time that I don't get nervous for any presentation. It's there, it's normal, it makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
And it's that opportunity to be able to give. And so I actually made the mistake, and I didn't know any better. I was just starting out. I just had a passion, and I had to share the community. So I was going to let that passion override the fear.
Yeah.
And because I thought, what would be the alternative if I don't get out there? I mean, I was on the verge of going bankrupt at that point in my practice, my first 30 days before I even got started. So I had no choice.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, when I started the presentation, I was incredibly nervous. I was sweating profusely. I was fumbling around with my words. I felt it. They could feel it. And they were getting incredibly nervous and feeling anxious as a result of it. And
I'm getting nervous just thinking about it.
Yeah, no, totally. And as I think about it, I don't remember exactly what I said because this was back in 2000 when this actually happened, when my first talk that I ever did. And so what I decided to do is I just literally stopped my presentation cold. And one of the things that I've learned, and I coach all my clients when I work with them, is that give up perfection for being authentic. Always be real and be authentic. People want real. They're not looking for perfection. Remember, most people's fear is public speaking. They'll embrace you just for having the courage to step up to the mic. And so what I did in that particular moment is that I addressed the elephant in the room. You always have to address the elephant in the room when they're speaking, right?
Yeah.
Right? If there's a kid screaming in the background or tech goes out or something's wrong and people are distracted by it, if you don't address it, they'll be distracted by it until you address it. And so in this case, the elephant in the room was me, right? I was incredibly nervous. And so I said something like the effect said, listen, obviously I'm incredibly nervous. I can't hide it. However, I hope you can see past it for just a moment. I'm not a trained public speaker. That obviously shows. So I made fun of myself. I had light at the moment.
Yeah.
And I hope that you can support me as my passion for serving this community to live a more healthy and more vibrant life without the side effects of medications or complications of surgery can overweigh any fear or nervousness that I have in front of the room. Could I count on your support? It was something along those lines. And when I embraced that, I relaxed, they relaxed, and I was able to settle into my presentation. 3 of the 5 guests that were in the room there's 10 total. I think 5 of them were already patients that were just there for moral support. And out of the 5 guests, 3 of them came in for care, and they accepted care and became patients, and it went on from there.
What's so cool about that example of acknowledging the elephant in the room is that, and I've seen this a handful of times at different events where someone, it was maybe their first time, when they do that and they address how nervous they are, it totally changes the environment in the room. And it goes from like this nervous energy to almost like the audience now wants you to win.
They want you to win.
They want you to win. And it's almost like, no, you're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they now, because you addressed it and it's just authentic like that, it just shifts everything around. And it's like when I've witnessed that happen where they might have just gotten stuck and they just were doing that awkward, swallow thing when you're like trying to,
right. You can't get a word out of anything.
You can't get a word out.
Yeah.
But, they did that and then all of a sudden they, just acknowledged it. And then all of a sudden it's like the energy shifted and it's like people want you to win. Right. And so, so if someone has let's just say that someone has that phobia, they are inspired to do this. I mean, any other tips as far as just getting started? Or like maybe if we paint the picture of why this is such an impactful thing to do, or like, what would you say to someone that's like, I'm just a little nervous, like any other things to address?
Yeah, remember everyone's favorite radio station. It's WIIFM. What's in it for me? And when we tend to get nervous, we're tending to reflect inwards in terms of thinking, how can we reflect outwards? And how can we serve them? How can we serve the community? And remember, in connecting back to your purpose and why you do what you do and what drives you to do the work that you do and what it will mean for them and the difference and the change in their life, and make it about them. And so when you're doing that, you're shifting that focus from an inward place to now an outward place, or a place of service. Because when we're nervous, we're reflecting inward as opposed to connecting outward. And so get clear on what that is for you and let that drive you. And then start small. It doesn't mean you have to get up in front of the big platform and
Yeah.
be in front of a 500-room audience. You might just start in your own bedroom with your spouse and say, hey, will you listen to this presentation I put together? Start with a few friends that will support you and give you honest feedback. And so just to start building that momentum.
I'm going to try that one. Hey, honey, I got a little presentation.
Yeah, I got a little presentation for you I want to share with you. And, because it just creates that if you can break through that first presentation, and what I've often always found in working with my clients is the moment that they break through and they do that, it's almost invariably just like with raising children. I've got 3 kids at home, and I'll never forget the story of my son when he was afraid of his very first roller coaster. And I won't go into all the detail of it, but we literally had to drag him along all day to finally try this roller coaster. And he finally tried it at Legoland here in California. And then when he rode it, he just immediately just did this loud whee, and just can we do it again? Can we do it again? And do it again. And we have this fear that's so built up in our mind, and he realized that wasn't so bad. That was actually fun. And that's the aha. So if you can think about your own fears in your own life, where you've pushed through, where you've broken through, and I know you do that so well at your event and what you do in helping people push through those barriers, you'll often find that, you know what, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And you get that great reception from that audience, or that one person, even if it's just one, that's enough to fuel the fire to help you to move forward.
And all I have to say is the event model has been the single best thing I've ever done in business. It's the most fun I've ever had. It's the most impactful thing that I could possibly do. The community that gets built as a result, the friendships, it's like there's so much good that happens at that event in those 3 days. It is the most transformational thing that I get to do as an entrepreneur. And I want to encourage you that, to really just to really think about this, as a method of growing your business, because the community that comes out of it, your ability to take your message and your gifts and help more people, it just starts to grow and grow. And so let's just say someone's like, thinking about it, maybe I could leverage this.
Maybe, why not? Try it.
So how do you look at getting started? So, I know that you coach folks. I know that you've got lots of ways that you help people take their talk and amplify it, but where do you start? How would you help? How would you help them get started?
So the key is when I work, especially with my VIP clients, where I spend the day with them, we actually literally break down step by step how to create what I call a trademark talk that both serves and sells. Okay. And so the key is to really begin any presentation where you're moving the audience forward into action. You always want to begin with the end. Where's the destination that you're leading them to at the end of the presentation? One of the biggest mistakes that I see entrepreneurs making is that they believe or have this understanding that the presentation is all about the content. And the content's important, absolutely, without a doubt. But it's less about the content and it's more about the destination. And so you want to think about where you want to lead them to. Is it a strategy session you want to drive them to? Is it a consultation to come into your office? Is it an opportunity to take part in an online program or course that you're wanting to drive them to? So we always start with, what is the offer that you want to make? And the offer is the next step. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be selling a physical product. It's just the next step, because how many times have we been to an event, see a great speaker deliver a phenomenal talk, and then at the end, there's no offer, there's nothing made, and we're like, okay, well, that was great, that was kind of good, and okay.
What do I do now?
What do I do now?
Yeah.
Right, and this often helps with entrepreneurs that are out there speaking, and they're leaving with compliments and not clients.
Yeah.
Right, so we always want to start with the offer, and then everything starts to build from there, and we continue to go backwards from that point.
And I think that's of course super important, because you want to make sure that your time at the event, is your investment of your time is worthwhile, and you get a return, and you attract the right clients too. So we start with the end in mind first, and we get really clear on what the offer is, or what the next step is, like you said. And then how do you look at then crafting the message, or what are some of the tips and techniques that are tangible that they could use to get into action? Yeah,
so then once you have the offer in place, then we want to make sure we focus on how do we deliver that. So we really work on structuring out, how do you invite the room? No one likes to be closed.
Yeah.
And you know, in all of my sales training, I've never really preferred the word close.
Yeah.
You know, people love to buy, they don't want to be sold. And so what we want to do is invite them. It's just like inviting a friend to a movie. So we want to get very clear on the phrasing and the language and how we can do that and why they should act now. We need to give them a reason. We need to create that sense of urgency. We must give them an incentive as a reason why they should act now. And really absolutely make it a no-brainer for them to take that leap of faith forward with you. So you need to be very clear on the offer structure itself, and that it's clear. So there's the 3 easies, as I call them. It needs to be easy to use, the product itself, right? What's the next step? It must be easy for them to understand. So this is really great if you're working with someone and you're presenting this in your home and you're rehearsing and practicing. Think about your offer and go to a complete stranger and say, hey, does this make sense? If they can understand it. And one of the best tools that I actually use are actually my children. And so, you know, one of the things in presentations is that I always like to imagine my 11-year-old son in the back of the room. And if he can understand what I'm saying, then everyone else can. It's not that the audience isn't intelligent or not smart, but you really need to keep it simple. So make it easy to use, easy to understand, and make it easy for them to buy. And when you do those 3 things in the checklist, then you go backwards from there and you think, okay, as I look at the body of my content, what is it that they currently believe about that particular situation or challenge?
Yeah.
What is it now that they should believe, right? What is the myth or misconception that's standing in the way? And then how can I reframe that so that they can really understand what it is? So the key about the body of the content of the talk is that you really need to get in and drive a wedge. It's what I call doing a gap analysis, where, you know, a patient, I'll use an example from practice. Someone would come in with a routine low back pain. And so they think, oh, it's just a couple little adjustments here and there and get fixed. And then, we go in and we do the exam and we do some x-rays and do some MRIs, and the results come back and we see bulging disc, we see degenerative disc disease, stage 3 spinal degeneration. That's accelerated well beyond any other part of the spine. And now all of a sudden the problem is much bigger than they ever thought it was. The question now becomes, how long do you think it's been there? When do you think this may have started? What accidents or traumas have you had 15 or 20 years ago? Because that's probably when this process all started.
Wow, yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I had no idea. So the body of the talk is designed to bring about that type of aha that says they think that they're here, but after you've delivered your content, you've widened the gap so far where they go, oh my God, I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know that my dreams were possible, or that I could accelerate my success based on wherever the offer is.
And so the gap, so it sounds like that could be positive or negative.
It could.
Like it could be, I didn't realize I had this much opportunity, for online marketing, right? Or, I didn't realize that, by, crafting and creating a talk from stage could lead to this kind of amount of business. And then what else would you have? Are there steps that follow from there as well?
Yeah, so as you look at the body of the content, then you want to start looking at, well, what are the 3 key pieces? Really, anything more than 3 teaching points gets to be too much. Many entrepreneurs that I work with just want to inundate and overload because we're givers. We want to share. We want to give as much of our content as we can. And I've made this mistake. I still have from time to time, because I do love to teach and we want to show what we know. But the more that we give them, we either, one, overload them with too much content. They don't know what to do first. Or they get a false sense of security thinking that they can somehow go and now do this on their own. And so what we want to do is just focus in on 3 key teaching points and find out, what is the teaching point? Why does it matter? Why is that important now? Right? What will I be able to do or achieve as a result of that, or do or act differently? And then what stories do I have, or anecdotes or social proof that demonstrate that result?
That's cool. I like that, the content. So basically you're weaving in story with the content so that it's not just talking at them.
Exactly. And that's really important. Story is incredibly important because at the end of the day, I was just on the phone literally today with one of my clients who speaks to the chiropractic community, and he has made a massive shift because he's teaching a very analytical topic on the science of chiropractic to doctors and how they can understand and build their certainty in practice. and the current research is very left brain. And so we've completely reworked his entire presentation to shift more onto the emotional component and the stories and the impact and the difference that it has now made, not only for the doctors, but the lives that they influence and the patients who now have a greater understanding of what chiropractic actually is and what it can do. And weaving in his own personal story of his family growing up in a medical model home with his father was a medical doctor, his mother was a medical doctor, but he chose to be a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And some of the challenges that he had as a result. And so we weaved all of those elements in, and so that it supported his offer and his transformation at the end, and then picked out different stories for each of the components in the body of his content. So everything is with intention and with purpose, so that it continues to lead the audience like watching a great movie.
Right. Some of the factors with that, I think that helps too, is if you're not like someone that speaks a lot, is that the thought can be daunting of commanding an audience and all that, and there's the phobias, but it's like what I love about speaking is that when you actually just shift gears and you get into telling stories, that I've watched people that have never spoken before, had huge fears of public speaking, and as soon as you start to share stories that that you're just recalling memories, it's a totally different experience. Like we all can just bust out and share stories, as opposed to if we're trying to recite, because I think part of the phobia stuff is it goes back to high school or elementary school or, where we're presenting on topics that we don't know all the information. So there's memorization, there's things like that, there's PowerPoints, versus when it's story, you're recalling what's happened. And it's authentic and it's true. And when you weave in the stories into your talking points, it makes it fun and it makes it animated, easier to deliver. And then the connection is totally different.
Right.
It's like what you mentioned about the emotional versus the logic is everything. I mean, I'll never forget, I had one of my coaches, I did a presentation on Facebook ads, and she literally screamed at me, she swore at me. It was the worst effing presentation I've ever seen. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, 12 people bought, there's only like 150 people in the room. And I was like, really? Yeah. And she was like, this event, so-and-so spent 3 days getting everyone into this emotional state. And then you came in and basically asked them to pull out an effing calculator and got them thinking again. And it was just a total eye-opening moment that it's like, I always would, like you said, I would always think it's about jamming as much content in there as possible. And really it's about the emotional connection and it's about the storytelling. And that's why standing ovations don't happen on logic; they happen on emotion. And it's such a difference. And it actually makes me think of something that I heard you say about, I think it was last week, about running ovations. Running ovations. So tell us about running ovations, and I'd love to hear what that is and how you help people achieve that.
No, it's great. As you say that, I want to think about an important point that came up as you were talking about the power of emotion. Is that, remember one thing is that the audience really rarely ever remembers what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel, and that really becomes the most important as you get into those story elements, because it's those stories that allow people to create connection with you, and when you have connection, you have currency. And it's all about moving the audience forward. So at the end of the day, when you're in business, let's be business for a moment, because we all want to give and we all want to serve, but it's hard to serve when we're struggling to pay our bills or struggling to get our message out. Yeah. And so, what we want to be able to do is to be able to inspire the audience into action so that they go from interested to invested on the spot. And so that's the difference between a standing ovation versus a running ovation. And a running ovation is where you have the audience just go, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed, exactly what I was looking for. I didn't even know that I needed it, but now I'm fully aware of it, and I need to act now. And they're running to the back room to go take, to make their purchase for the product and the service. And, earlier this year, and the beauty of speaking is you can really get started very quickly. Yeah. As you mentioned, I'd been behind the scenes with T. Harv Eker and Brian Tracy. And, when I was at Brian Tracy's home last year for his Christmas party, he said, Andreas, it's time for you to go spread your wings. And so that's been my year. And so I had an opportunity to go speak at a conference in Las Vegas and launch my first online course before I actually created it.
Yeah.
And it's called proof of concept. So I basically knew what the product was going to be, which has now become Amplify Your Talk, which is my online course. And I went to a presentation, didn't have the product done, created the offer in the order form, and then structured the presentation around that, converted over 40% of the room of a product I had yet to create, sold 3 VIP days, and over 5 figures in a room of just 60 people in one 60-minute presentation. And that's how quickly you can change your life and you can change your business, because once you have one trademark talk, it was one trademark talk that allowed me to build a multi-million-dollar wellness center. It was one trademark talk that allowed me to build one of the fastest teams in network marketing history. And it was one trademark talk that allowed me to work with T. Harv Eker and Brian Tracy, and now again in my own career. And so I want you to really understand how powerful this tool is, that when you can get live in front of a room, to literally be able to launch a new program, to fill a new program, to fill your workshops or fill your events, and how quickly it can actually be done.
It's so good. Like I said, it's the best decision I've ever made in business was the live events. And I was nervous at first, but just like you said, I didn't start with a 3-day event. You know, I started smaller and I built up to it. And you know, we've got we have a client, Karen Fagan. She did a 1-day event. She brought in $96,000 in a day.
That's awesome.
And people were loving her, and people were just, I mean, whether they purchased or not, like they just got so much out of the experience. And so for Karen, it's just like, you just got to get back there and do more of that.
Right.
You know, we've had clients that have just put on meetups, and it's like literally just think of it as, once you have your signature talk, or you call it, is it your trademark? Trademark talk.
Yep.
It's like, you just need to get out there and just express it to more people. And what's cool is it can be started locally. You know, you've got chambers, BNIs, you've got meetup groups.
Opportunities everywhere.
There's joint venture opportunities to help other people get you in the room. There's putting on local events, which is, I mean, Karen Fagan had Bulletproof Coffee sponsor her event and covered her costs. And she got 26 people in the room and booked $96K. So it's just, you know, I think what today is really meant to do is if you feel that you've got a message, you know, and I think if you're hanging around Life on Fire and, you know, watching Life on Fire TV or listening, it's like, by the nature of hanging around our community, I feel like we attract most people that do have a message and a purpose. And it's my big passion is to help you get it out there. You know, that's why I bring in Dr. Andreas on here today, is because he's an expert that I look up to, you know, from all your experience, what you've done with T. Harv and Brian Tracy. I'm super excited to learn from you at your event.
I'm honored. I'm excited.
And which is super cool. But it's like you help people take their message and get out to the masses. And I think that, you know, as an entrepreneur, it's like if you're just out making money to make money, I think that, you know, you'll find that your career and your journey will be a little bit empty. You know, it's like when I sold a company, I was empty after I sold it because I didn't have a purpose behind it. So it's like, if you've got this calling in a message, and maybe you need clarity, maybe you need to take your message and drill it all the way down to like a trademark talk. It's like, if that's where you are, whether it's clarity, whether it's like really crafting the message or getting it dialed in or learning anything about like filling the rooms, whatever that may be, I would just say that, you know, definitely, you know, check out Dr. Andreas. We're going to share his contact info in just a little bit. You know, he's a guy with a servant's heart. You know, I hope that this episode really demonstrates, you know, what he has to offer. This is just a little taste, but I'm excited about your event that's coming up. I mean, you know me. If you're part of Life on Fire group, I mean, you see ads for the Our Ignite event. I mean, I'm all over the place with events because I love them so much. But I'm fired up because you've got an event coming up. I'm very grateful to be speaking at it. We're working together, and I'm excited for what's coming up. It's going to totally rock. But we've got a lot of clients that I'm encouraging to go. I think that if you're anywhere near this area, or if you can get here, to learn how to craft your trademark talk, and it's just something that I wish for every one of you. It is the best thing I've ever done doing these live events. It'll change your life. It'll change how you make your money, how you help your audience, how you get your message out there. And I'd love to just have you share a little bit of an overview of what's happening. And this isn't a sales piece. He's going to totally hook you up with a free ticket. But I'd love for you to share just why you're so excited about the event and what's going to happen there. What's the outcome?
Yeah, no, the outcome for you is really about the word amplify. I love the word amplify. I'm a huge rock fan anyway, as it is. And I just know that there are so many entrepreneurs that are out there that are saying to themselves right now that if only everyone knew what I knew, I would have more clients and more business that I knew what to do with. And I've heard this over and over again. And so what my passion has become is helping experts, coaches, consultants, solopreneurs take their voice and their message and refine it in a way so they can really go out there and make the difference that they were born to make. And being able to step behind the veil of uncertainty and fear and doubt, but to be able to stand in pride and in confidence in who you really are. It's not about sounding like Nick, or it's not about sounding like me. You know, my mentor and my friend as well, Brian Tracy, who's going to be there at the event, has delivered over 5,000 talks. He's generated over $500 million in platform sales. He's going to be sharing his secrets to commanding the room. So this event is really all of my years. I've delivered over 1,000 talks in my career, and it's come from my background as a doctor with that bedside manner of caring and giving, and also in my years of training and development and education. You'll be able to use the material and the content that we'll be sharing not only in your trademark talk that serves and sells, but in your own workshops, in your own events. And how do you engage the audience? How do you enroll the audience? How do you make it fun for them and create an experience that they'll never forget? And when you do that, you really opens up all the doors. So what my goal for you is to be able to help you to finish the year strong and arm yourself with the most cost-effective marketing tool that arguably you could ever have in growing your business. You've heard Nick talk about it. You've heard me talk about it. I think any entrepreneur that you may be following or looking up to has you speaking in some way, shape, form, or another to get out there with their message to make the difference that they're making. And so what we want to do is to help you step up, pull a seat to the big boy, the big girl table, and really own your message in a way that's authentic to who you are, but following a science and a system. There is an art to public speaking, and that comes with time. You can't replace practice. But what we want to do is give you the preparation. And so when you were asking me earlier about people struggling with the confidence, it's often because they're just lacking in the preparation. It's amazing as I take my audiences through the transformation on how to create a talk, that when we break it down, because we're literally at the event, we're going to break it down step by step. We're going to reverse engineer your talk from the offer to how you create the urgency to why they should act now, how you can invite the room without losing your mojo, how you can create the body of your talk, stretch the gap, how you can use language and invisible influence skills to help support your talk, so you're really connecting with your audience, and also to find the words that are already circulating in their audience's mind. You know, many entrepreneurs are sitting there thinking, I just don't know what to say. You have more than enough content. You have more than enough words. But the key is that to find the words that are already going in their mind. As if you're speaking to them like, are you like sitting down at the dinner table with my wife and I or whatever? How do you know what I'm thinking? Because when you can demonstrate that you can articulate their problem better than they can, they will automatically see you as the solution. So you will leave this event with it completely refined, opportunities to rehearse and practice, to get that out of the way so that you can finish, like I said, the year strong, have 2016 with this talk in hand, learn from Nick, who I'm excited to have.
I'll be there.
I'm honored. It's going to be great. And Brian Tracy as well.
Yeah, I'll be there talking about how to fill the room. So, you know, we've got Amplify Your Talk, and I'm there as a speaker, which I'm very grateful to be speaking at and sharing. I mean, literally, we have a playbook on how to fill the room, and that's how we've built. I mean, you're talking about millions of dollars with Life on Fire from the event model, and being able to share and break that down, that playbook, and teaching that. But also, I'll be there to learn from you. I mean, you're someone that, if I can, you know, take what I've done and amplify what I've done and get better and better and better, this is going to help enhance our events. So I'm there as a student. I'll be right there next to you. And he's been super generous. He's making this easy for all the folks that are part of the Life of Fire community and those around the area. So tell us about how to grab a free ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. So very simple. Just go to amplifyliveevent.com. All the information is there. You'll be able to claim your free ticket, but I do strongly ask that you make a decision and do so quickly, because we're not sure how long we're going to be making this offer available because of having you on stage and having Brian Tracy at the event. and finally revealing everything that we've done from behind the scenes when I was director of sales with T. Harv Eker, overseeing all event sales and offers, and literally overseeing millions and millions and millions of dollars of platform sales. We're going to be revealing and basically pulling back the backstage curtain so that you can get a peek into what's actually happened in the event industry space, and from a standpoint of how to use your talk to grow your business in any business, regardless of your niche or your industry or who you're serving, because we all use speaking to grow our business, whether we like it or not. So we might as well embrace it and be able to make the difference that you were born to make. So head to amplifyliveevent.com, claim your free ticket while they're available, and I'll be honored to share the room with you and a platform with you. So
I love it. AmplifyLiveEvent.com. Go ahead, grab your ticket now, because, like Dr. Andreas said, they will not be around forever, and the event's coming up pretty soon. So, claim your free ticket and be there. I'd love to hang with you in the audience and learn from this guy. And I want to leave you with the challenge. And the challenge is to make the decision to go from being someone that is maybe behind the camera or either behind the camera, meaning someone that's watching YouTube videos or watching webinars or watching others on stage. Go from being the person in the audience to being the person that commands the audience. And you watch what happens to your life and to your business, because I think that for all of us entrepreneurs, there's a switch that gets flipped. And when it does, it's the best thing ever. That was the decision I had to make. I was the person always watching the other YouTube videos and saying to myself, I want to be like that person. I want to do what he does. I want to do what that person does. Yeah. Or I've been in the audience and I said, I want to do what they're doing. And one day I want to be able to really have fun and have confidence up on a stage and grow my business that way. And the coolest thing is it's just a decision. That's all it is. Yeah. You don't have to be special. I've proved with my experience, I didn't have any special talents or gifts. Everything that I've done has been a man-made skill that I've gone out and I've done it the hard way. I've practiced and I've invested in myself, and put myself around guys like Dr. Andreas to learn skills. But every one of you can go ahead and to learn. And so I just want to leave you with that challenge that, to go from being someone that's in the audience to being the person that's commanding the audience. So AmplifyLiveEvent.com. Grab a free ticket. Let's hang. I can't wait to see you in action.
It's gonna be fun.
And learn. So hope to see you guys there. Cheers.
You bet. Thank you.
I'm here to help you set your life on fire.